Hi, everybody, and welcome to Articulate Thursdays. I'm your host, the mild-mannered community development specialist, Nabil. Always happy to be joined by the wonderful Tanya. Tanya, what's going on?
Hi. So today we have invited a local artist, Soyeon Kim, to have a studio visit. And so Soyeon taught art classes here at Queen Elizabeth Park Community and Cultural Center for many years. And then she moved on to another job, but we occasionally call her back for different projects. So currently she has artwork on display at Forster Park. We have some beautiful vitrines in that park. And Soyeon did a community project 2 summers ago, and we have that on display. Soyeon has also made various murals for our camp programs, and we really love working with Soyeon. So I'd like to introduce Soyeon Kim. Soyeon Kim is a Korean-born artist and educator currently living in Burlington, Ontario. She received a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Visual Arts and a Bachelor of Education from York University. She has participated in artist residencies in Russia and locally in Prince Edward County at Sparkbox Studios. As a children's picture book illustrator, she has published many books: You Are Stardust, Wild Ideas, Is This Panama, Sukak and the Raven, You Are Never Alone, Alaska Goodbye, and Once Upon an Hour. She has participated in TD Book Week 2018, visiting schools and libraries in northern British Columbia. And in 2017, she was invited to the Adelaide Writers Week in Australia for Kids Weekend, where she collaborated with children and families to create a collaborative mural based on the book, You Are Stardust. She's also a recipient of Amelia Frances Howard Gibbon Illustrators Award. So many achievements, and we're very excited to have you here today to share all of your projects, community-based as well as your own artistic practice.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Nabil. Thank you for the opportunity to share what I have created and my journey. So maybe we can start with the slide. So this was the one that I have done when I was invited for the Kids Week at the Adelaide in Australia. And I got to collaborate with families and children, and also the author of the You Are Stardust, which is my first book that I have illustrated with her. This was very special book for me, and it's never to say every book is very special for me all the time, but this is the first book that I have illustrated and created an art for. And the fact why it was so special is because the way how I started the illustration industry was when I first created the diorama artwork. So I started working with dioramas. That is right behind me right here. Looks like a frame with the wooden frame with the fabric that's stretched at the top and the bottom. And then I would create drawing pieces that are small and big, like this, with the watercolor painting and pen and ink. Sometimes I would cut paper, Japanese paper or Korean paper that has textures like this, and then they would being assembled inside the box using the fishing lines. So you can see it inside the book cover that it shows the entire diorama in here. But this is how I became an illustrator for the book, by showing the diorama artwork during my first exhibition at the Toronto Outdoor Art Exhibition back in around 2011. And the editor from the Owl Kids came to see the artwork and then asked if I would be interested in collaborating the illustration. And that's how I landed here. And this is one of the projects that I got to collaborate with the author and the people in the Adelaide West for the Children's Festival. And I do multiple artist visits, so we can move on to the next slide. as you see in here, this is one of the collaborative diorama that I have done with the students from Dr. Eric Jetman Institute in Toronto. They are linked with U of T, and this was the collaborative diorama that I have done with from grade kindergarten to grade 6, I believe. So what we did was we would go through different techniques of the watercolor. So what I do mostly, what I enjoy the most is the salt effect, sometimes the oil pastel, or wet on wet with the watercolor. That's how we would create the background elements of the water and the tree trunks and everything. And then I would ask them their favorite creatures from the nature or even imaginary creatures that they love to create. So this is one of the examples that I have worked with. And then we can move on to the next slide too. And this is the final piece. So I've done, for each class, I've done a diorama each. So there was about, I want to say 20 students per class. And then we had, I had asked them to create pieces inside, and then we had put them all together so it works as a whole dioramas together.
Right. So when I look at this, I see like the bottom two dioramas look like they're the bottom of the sea, and then the middle two dioramas look like they're underwater but just coming to the water's edge, and then the top two dioramas look like they're above water, so it works as a complete whole. That's really, I really like that. That's very clever.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that they kind of work as a whole. So the interesting fact about the dioramas is that there are so many possibilities that you can explore too. It's a collage art, but it's also a way that you can play with the dioramas as itself and as together as a whole art piece, which I think it's very acceptable to create a collaborative piece together.
So how long does this take, Soyeon, when you're working with the classroom, like with the children?
So I would do 2 visits. So 2 full classes where I go through some of my work. So I would bring my own diorama in the class to show them in person, because usually it's kind of hard to see or feel what the diorama looks like from the printed piece. So they would see what it looks like, and then we would look at the book together, and I would show some of the techniques that I would do. And then I would usually have a theme of what they're going to be working on. And then it would take one class to start their art, and then the next class to finish. And then I would assemble those things together to make it work as a whole.
How enthusiastic are the little ones when you're doing the artwork?
The little ones, I enjoy the most when I visit the little ones, because they are full of energy, and you can see it in the face. Like they are just like, I just want to also like touch it and see it and create it. So, and they love making masks with the watercolor paint. But I think the most exciting part for me is that when they actually see the diorama in person, because they are so used to seeing it like in the book pages that are like kind of 2-dimensional flat surface. But when you actually see it in person inside the diorama, it's a whole different world, and you can kind of almost see and feel the texture through your eyes too. So I think it gives them a lot of excitement, hopefully.
Yeah, no, look how cool it looks, right? And it's always interesting how the sum of the final product is like when you get to see it in final fruition, right? It's so awesome, and this is just an example of that. What's going on here, Soyeon?
Yeah, so this is another artist visit that I've done. It's for the mask author and illustrator festivals that they had in Ottawa. So they have rented the Aviator Museum space, and then we had the students, it's almost like a kind of a camp, but like a festival way, where they get to present and write and draw and paint. And these are one of the examples of the pieces that we have created together. So similar idea where they collaborate as a class, and then all the pieces are coming together at the end.
So sweet. I love the swing, the little person with the red
Yeah.
t-shirt on the swing.
Yeah,
So many details. It's so great.
yeah.
It's awesome.
Sometimes it's tricky, like to see, so we can actually go to the next slide, but sometimes it's kind of tricky where and how I'm going to be fitting them, because when we start, I asked them, okay, we're gonna create a textured painting of, let's say, ocean of water. So we would I would ask them just to paint on a flat surface using one of the watercolor techniques that's either the salt or oil pastel, water resistant. And then I asked them to create little creatures or things that they will likely want to put in the diorama itself. So they never really have clear understanding of what it looks like in the final. But as I assemble while they're drawing and painting, they're like, oh, so this is how it works. And then it's like, it just connects everything all together, although it's a separate pieces. And then they're like, I can find this. And oh, mine's over here. So that, I think that's the fun part of it at the end too.
It sounds magical, like as the experience as the child to be able to not only, learn new processes in watercolor and painting, but then to, put it together and see, oh, how it comes together. So that sounds wonderful.
And how long, Soyeon, does it take you, like when you get all their pieces together to sort of make this? Like, what's the timeline?
So I try to do as much I can during while they're painting too and drawing, and then when they have their pieces, it's like kind of like, okay, we're gonna start putting things together. But usually I would say I need at least an hour-ish to put everything together. But I would do as much prep as I can. So what I do is I cut out the boxes first before I start the class. And then I would have a couple of the fish strings pre-hung inside the boxes so that they are all kind of ready, and all I have to do is ask them to cut their pieces and then just assemble them on however it works in the box itself.
That's awesome. So that's a really quick turnaround. Like that's a 6-month project for me. So the turnaround is just fantastic and speaks to sort of your skill sets. What's happening here, Soyeon?
So this is an example of the background painting and the background elements that they would do. So we would start with like the biggest painting piece so that we have enough time to dry. So this is one of the examples that they did, I think, for the tree trunk. So instead of giving a separate pages, like I would give one paper for them to work together as a group. It's a good way for them to kind of learn to share and ask about other ideas so that they can work together as a group. And then I also give them a chance for them to work individually so that there are two components that they can learn socially and individually in this project.
Yeah, awesome. Let's move on to the next one.
So now we're moving on to the process of my art making of the diorama. So this is how I start. I actually am a member, woodworking member at QEP, Queen Elizabeth Community and Culture Park. But I use the woodworking studio a lot of times to create a diorama, which you see over here. So I start with the plank of wood. So on your left hand top, you'll see it's just a flat piece, like a wooden piece, which is I have planned and sanded everything and ready to be cut. So once those are ready, then I would cut it into the proper length and the width. So I have all the pieces ready for the diorama building.
Wow. Yes, I recognize the wood shop table there. And I do remember when you were taking some adult classes in woodworking when you started this.
Yeah,
so
true.
Another connection to Articulate Thursday and the town. That's great.
Yeah, because before we can keep this, but before I started building my own dioramas, like you'll see that my first book, the Your Stardust, the dioramas that I built was this one you'll see on the back cover, it looks very different. It looks thicker, and it's actually some of the wood pieces that I picked up with my brother from Home Depot, and then we just nailed everything together. And then I was like, okay, I need to learn a proper way of woodworking so that I can actually build the frames that I want to use for my art. So I took one of the adult woodworking class, and it's fantastic because you learn all the basics and you get more comfortable with the machines that you need to use. And then there was also trainings that you can apply for additional trainings to make yourself feel comfortable. So it really helped a lot to use the space and the facility. Yeah, but this is just another work in progress photos of how I build the wooden frames. And you can see that I have, they're being glued together. So I have moved away from using the screws and the nails because the best way to bond them together is the glue.
Right.
But all the frame building, I do everything in the community center, and then I move to the studio later.
That's fantastic. Maybe this is like you have a rustic. The first painting was maybe more rustic and more raw. This is much more refined, right? But they both have sort of their appeals to art. So very interesting. Oh, and so are these both yours, Suya, or is this?
Yeah. So the one that's on the top is the rough sketch, and then so after the rough sketch, then I moved into the actual pieces. So these pieces I mostly work with pen and ink and watercolor. Sometimes I like to build things into a 3D shapes. So you can see in the building, it has a little bit more structure. And I can probably show you for some of the stuff that I did. Sometimes I paint and then build the furniture that I would use for the
That's
book.
so cute.
But I like to sometimes challenge myself to go in a smaller size. But this is how I would do it. So in the rough sketch, I do all the sketches of what it looks like. And then in my head, as I sketch it, like I know what's going to be in the background, middle ground, and foreground. And each pieces kind of come together and cut separately so that I can start layering and be prepared for the diorama assembly.
That's
Great.
awesome.
And so more sketches. These are very sweet. All the children that are in this diorama. And then I think the slide after that will show us the cutouts because you cut everything out. And then I'm excited to see the final. So now you're assembling it and there it is. Wow.
Yeah. This is the final piece that we took together for this diorama. And each diorama actually has more than one page of the book. So for example, if you see this one is actually from the book called You Are Never Alone. And it actually has the two spreads. So the one that's on the top left-hand corner with the reindeer is the one spread you see in the book. It's crop. And then there's another scene that is entire page from the diorama.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Book. So sometimes I want to make sure that diorama is not working just for one spread from the book. I wanted to make it work as a whole too. So each diorama sometimes have one or two spreads from the book. And then all of the dioramas actually kind of work together. It's on one flow when you put it all together. So you will see it in the cover, inside the cover too. You'll see the entire dioramas all coming together and how it might connect.
Yeah, I love that idea for the book jacket that you show the process because it really gives the reader the understanding of how the artwork is made. So if you haven't seen any of the books that Soyeon has illustrated, that most of them are available at your local library. I know Oakville Library has many, so do check them out. They're really beautiful. And then also that it takes more than just one of those dioramas to make a book. It's a multiple. And I think there's another slide that shows, that gives you a sense of scale as well. But we can look at this. So this is our great video. I loved watching this, Soyeon, because you really start to see space within the diorama. I mean, it's nothing like seeing it in person, but I thought it was really great just to get an idea of how it works. And then I think the next slide, it's your photo shoot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun to see how you document them, because you get them professionally photographed for the books, right?
Yeah. So the photographs actually takes about 1 full day or 2. So usually 2 full days, like really, really long. But it's a good way to actually get a really great quality of the photographs. And that way we can use the spreads for the book too.
Yeah, and it's just cool to see how this process happens, right? And then I think it's the slide after this where you are standing with all the dioramas. Yeah, I love this because you really get a sense of scale. Like these are a lot larger than I thought in my mind. So this is really beautiful. So these are all the dioramas that are part of that one book.
Yeah, so each book actually has about 6 to 7 dioramas in total, every book. And so far I have done quite a bit of books, so that means I have a lot of dioramas being stored in the house, and I'm renting a storage too for all these to be kept. But I'm hoping in the future to have exhibition of all these dioramas to come together and show in the public.
Any one of these that you really enjoyed working on, Soyeon?
Oh, that's a hard question. Like every book and every diorama I've worked on for each book is very special, but You Are Never Alone especially, I think, was a point where I made the diorama really large. So before it was quite small. It was not as big as this one, but I was like, okay, I need more room. Like I want more room so that I can create more stuff in it. And this is probably one of my favorite projects that I worked on for You Are Never Alone, which I got to explore all different parts of nature that is either under the ocean or in the forest or urban city. So I think this is probably one of my favorite.
Yeah, awesome. It's absolutely fantastic.
Beautiful work.
This is the You Are Never Alone. They can get it at Oakville Library. Anywhere else that they can find your works, Soyeon?
Yeah, the book can be available through the Chapters, Indigo, and Amazon, and probably some of the smaller local bookstores too.
Fantastic. And this is your website and your Instagram?
Yes, I actually have a new book that just came out. It's called Last Goodbye, and it's about how animals also mourn and let go of their loved ones. It's a social emotional learning connection of the book that I think is actually pretty important at the time like this for the families who are going through a rough patch. But this one was the very difficult book that I worked on. But this is one of the book that has came out, and there will be another book that's coming out from Orca Publishing. It's called Once Upon an Hour, and this book is based on Korean folk tale. So it has a bit of my traditions in it too. I've got to work with a Korean author named An Yu-kyung Choi, and this is one of the book that I have enjoyed because it's more of fantasy related stuff too. So you'll hear more about it. I'll post more photos on Instagram, so please make sure to check out. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Soyeon, for joining us here today, for sharing with us some of your artwork and some of the process and sort of the inspiration behind it. It's awesome to see the wonderful work that you're doing, and I'm sure once the physical distancing is sort of alleviated, and then life kind of gets back to new normal, we'll see you a little bit more in our facilities, right? And then
Yes.
program. So just in the interest of time, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Tanya, any last words?
Thank you so much for talking with us today, Soyeon. It was lovely to get an understanding of your studio practice and how your work starts from an idea and ends up in a book. And I'm very excited to see the new book. So I look forward to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for the opportunity. And this brings me the memory back to working at QEP. So hopefully once the social distancing is gone away for a bit, maybe I'll do a visit, and then I look forward to using the studio normally again too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in, everybody. And this is Articulate Thursday. Take care, everybody. Stay safe, Oakville.